This narrative starts with a savage betrayal. Ahn Suho, our lead, a gifted blade user, was dropping to his knees before a collection of individuals he formerly called allies. His frame was shaking, and his limb displayed obvious indicators of being tainted. He wheezed sharply, his respiration thin and labored, and it didn't take long for him to grasp this wasn't merely some standard toxin. It was something significantly more perilous, likely terminal. In front of him stood two of his partners, and rather than aiding him, they chuckled. They truly discovered amusement in witnessing him endure. One of them, a combatant, mocked and remarked Suho ought to have joined their scheme. But Suho had picked a different route. He stayed faithful to his obligations as a civil official, obstinately clinging to his principles instead of succumbing to dishonesty. This crew had just finished seizing one of the infamous 5 catastrophe portals, a spot from which frightening fiends surfaced. But now these scoundrels desired to keep that portal accessible. They didn't want to complete the task. They wished to ensure the fiends weren't entirely erased, so they could reappear repeatedly. Because as long as the peril persisted, so did their occupations, their clout, and their rank. If the fiends were vanished, the limelight would diminish, and so would their strength. Suho recalled all the moments he had spent with them, battling side by side in life-risking skirmishes, trusting them with his existence. And now they stood before him, watching him perish, without a bit of regret. They rationalized their deeds by claiming Suho was the sole person who had resisted the scheme. Everyone else was in agreement. Then the marksman stepped forward and nonchalantly reached out his hand, presenting Suho a second opportunity. He stated that if Suho consented to join their side, they'd permit him to survive. But Suho wasn't a dunce. How could he rely on people who had just tainted him and stood back to observe him suffer? Furthermore, he could already sense it. His physique had been strained past its bounds. The toxin had traveled too far. There was no returning from this. His endurance was futile. But even if he couldn't survive, he could still achieve 1 feet drag at least one of these turncoats down with him. With that, Suho started gathering all the vitality he had remaining. A mighty vibration flared from him, piercing and crushing. A few from the cluster were instantly frozen with dread, retreating in fright. But the female in the group, even more terrified than the others, tried to settle everyone down, insisting they shouldn't lose their cool. The marksman, clearly on the brink of losing control of his plumbing, could sense this was grim. And then Suho acted. In a single rapid motion, he bolted forward. His blade sliced through the combatant's limb, and in the very following instant, he decapitated the dark sorceress with lethal accuracy. The marksman barely managed to flee, pulling the medic with him. Their conceited looks, once brimming with pride, had totally vanished. In a flash, they were replaced by pure panic. The medic quickly attempted to rescue the injured combatant, casting mending charms frantically, but nothing functioned. To her amazement, she grasped she couldn't mend him at all. Her gaze shifted to Suho. She witnessed something odd, something potent. Suho was no longer merely a vanishing man. He was brimming with the energy of resolve itself. And not just him. His blade had altered too, now crafted entirely from that same unshakable resolve. It was dubbed the ethereal blade, a tool sparked from sheer persistence. But that strength carried a price. The vitality that had kept him upright eventually dimmed. Suho's vigor surrendered, and his frame tumbled. He lurched backward, plunging off a precipice behind him. He fell deep into the canyons below, vanishing from their view, leaving behind nothing but quiet. Suho slowly cracked his eyes to the noise of turmoil around him. There was yelling, alarms, and the specific sound of people sprinting. He was being moved by a rescuer, but he had no clue what was occurring. His mind was whirling, puzzled and hazy. Everything felt fake, like a fantasy or a bad dream. The rescuer holding him was darting toward a set safety sector, moving swiftly through the packed, terrified paths. Suho couldn't comprehend it at first. The final thing he recalled was perishing. He knew he had passed. So how was he here? Existing, rattled, and being saved. Then something snapped. He perceived what was occurring around him. A portal had triggered. A presumed portal. It had triggered a vault eruption. Fiends were flooding the zone. Specifically, small trolls. Scores of them were dashing through the metropolis, striking anything in view. As Suho peered around, he spotted a recognizable board resting on the dirt nearby. Sinandorum Station. That's when it all clicked. His recollections were accurate. This was the precise depot that had once been fouled during a sudden portal eruption. He had witnessed this occur before. Abruptly, out of nowhere, a bolt came zipping through the breeze and hit the rescuer carrying him. The man gave a shout as he slumped, and both he and Suho hit the ground. The small trolls were drawing nearer. Despite the ache, the hurt rescuer looked at Suho and urged him to flee. But Suho didn't budge. Instead of fleeing, his gaze centered on the hatchet the rescuer had been holding. Without wavering, Suho seized it, took aim, and pitched it with all his might at an advancing troll. The tool zipped through the atmosphere and hit the troll squarely, dropping it in a single strike. And then, right in that frantic second, something odd surfaced in front of Suho. Hovering prose, just like a screen. It was a mechanic window. It praised him on his awakening. For a heartbeat. He just glared at it, shook. It was exactly like before, exactly as he recalled. The mechanic asked him to pick the role he wished to track. Out of habit, his digit almost shifted to pick fighter. It was gut feeling, but then he hesitated. No, this time he chose to postpone his choice. Suho shifted his focus toward the small trolls, who were now cackling wildly, their yelps ringing across the fray. They appeared totally unbothered, grinning like madmen as if success was already theirs. But Suho wasn't amused. Without losing another heartbeat, he threw himself straight into the pack. His steps were sharp and fluid, dodging incoming strikes like they were nothing more than a gust. One troll, keen to land a blow, tried to creep up on him from the flank, but the instant its gaze met Suho's, it froze in dread because right in front of it, Suho had just reclaimed the same hatchet he had pitched before. The troll knew it immediately, its face warped in total fright. And frankly, if trolls wore slacks, that one probably would have soaked itself right there. But Suho didn't care. He wasn't here for drama. Before the brute could even emit a holler, Suho hacked it down in one neat sweep, stopping it before it could make the spot even more foul than it already was. He didn't halt there. Snatching one of the troll's blades from the dirt, he kept advancing. He knew exactly what he was confronting. Small trolls were risky, sure, but only to novices. To someone like him, a veteran who had seen far grimmer, slicing down trolls was no test at all. For Suho, it was simple. As Suho kept hacking through the trolls, dropping them one after another with a pace and accuracy that was even sharper than before. In just a few moments, the entire surge of trolls had been totally cleared, ended so fast it almost felt fake and crooked. As the grit settled, Suho looked down at the blade in his palms. He grasped how easily he had been swept away. In that moment, he wasn't poised or tactical. He had moved purely on gut and feeling. And while that raw strength was handy, he knew that during moments like these, what he truly required was a chilled brain. But then again, if he wasn't wrong, he had been sent back to the past for a reason. This was a second shot, a rare chance to begin everything over from zero, and he wasn't going to squander it. Suddenly, several mechanic windows popped up in front of him, praising him for perfecting various swordplay talents. But just then, something else grabbed his notice. The rescuer nearby was eyeing him, clearly inquisitive. The way Suho had battled didn't go ignored, and the man couldn't help but think if this fellow is a user. Suho simply gave a slight twitch in reply and shifted his focus back to the mechanic. He had decided on his role pick. He would become a medic. With that choice finalized, Suho strolled to the rescuer and civilly asked if he could check his harm. The man appeared a bit baffled. Just moments ago he had rescued Suho, and now Suho was proposing to mend him. It didn't quite make sense, but Suho didn't waver. He triggered his mystic mending glow, and instantly the toasty radiance of the charm started to take effect. In almost no time at all, the gash mended totally. The rescuer could barely trust what he was witnessing. How could Suho be a medic when he had just watched him drop an entire troll surge, like a practiced blade master? Before the man could ask further queries, another mechanic window surfaced. It was time for Suho to pick a tool from the stash. He didn't even waver. He knew exactly what he desired. He selected a starter's blade, the same one he had utilized before, and started bracing himself to test the portal ahead. This sudden grit made the rescuer a little edgy, even frantic. The portal up ahead wasn't something to be taken lightly, but Suho had something vital to lean on. He had gained a swordplay gift before picking a role. This was a crucial point. Talents gained based on natural gift could be used regardless of which role a user picked. And as the user increased levels, those talents and role skills also would keep transforming and getting tougher. Suho remembered something. Isabella's sacred aura had been the peak-tier polish of mending glow. If only he'd held that sort of strength back then, maybe things could have ended differently. But this time, he was going to do things correctly. He had a tidy strategy. He would tread the trail of both a blade master and a medic. And as he recalled the faces of his former partners, those creeps who had double-crossed and dumped him, his grit grew even tougher. He stepped nearer to the portal, the one that had nearly ended him in his past existence. Back then, he was frail and unready. But now, with the basics of swordplay carved in his very core, he knew he could manage it. Without a hint of doubt, Suho started strolling forward and moved inside the portal. As Suho moved through the gap, he suddenly found himself standing in the center of a thick, murky woods. Almost instantly, the mechanic window surfaced in front of him, showing the name of the zone, green-red. An odd label, but there wasn't much time to ponder it. After trekking for a brief span, Suho came across the bloody view of various troll remains littered across the wood's floor. Judging by their spots and looks, it appeared they had been fleeing from something or someone far more terrifying than themselves. Their warped frames implied dread, not just loss. That's when Suho heard something, a low, throat noise from nearby. He shifted his head toward the origin, and just like that, he recognized what was causing it. Two massive hobgoblins, pulling along the remains of a creature they had tracked. These weren't the frail, pestering trolls he'd seen earlier. Hobgoblins were a whole different monster, larger, nastier, and more risky. And when they spotted Suho, their eyes sparked with thrill. To them, human meat was a rare snack. Without pausing, they dumped their prior kill aside and aimed their jagged tools at Suho, keen to rip into fresh meat. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't have guessed, was that the human they were salivating over wasn't some basic catch. They were gazing at a hunter. The first hobgoblin lunged forward, blade swinging quickly, but it cut nothing but breeze. Suho dodged it neatly. He already knew he was too low level for these foes. His tool wasn't tough enough to slice through their dense hide with ease, but he didn't need to rely on raw power. He knew exactly where to hit. In one rapid motion, he dove straight at the first hobgoblin, aiming directly for its orb. The strike hit its target. The brute let out a sharp yelp, loud enough to shake the wood's trees. Suho, ever the kind-hearted one, finished the ache of the poor fiend by slaying it. But Suho never meant to slay it so quickly. His strike had been too potent, such that it was a pure habitual slip. He had desired to use the fiend to collect skills and points from the scrap, but accidentally killed it too early. Shifting toward the remaining hobgoblin, Suho chose to make decent use of this one. The second fiend, enraged over its fallen peer, bellowed and lunged forward, swinging its tool crazily in fury. But Suho was steady. He centered, dodging each strike with precise steps. The hobgoblin's hack left, then right, swinging like he is, but none of its strikes hit. In this realm, doing the same deed over and over could eventually lead to getting a skill linked to it. Suho knew this, and surely enough, after dodging several more strikes, a small smirk appeared on his face. He had gained a dodge skill, but he wasn't finished yet. Now he sought his second skill. Suho started parrying the incoming hits, shoving the blows, with exact timing. Parrying wasn't just a basic trick. It had deep origins in tool-based fighting, and acted as a base for many other high-level skills. It was vital, and Suho wanted it. After a few more successful blocks, the mechanic finally told him that he earned the parry skill. Sadly, by then, the hobgoblin had already grown weary. It wobbled, huffing hard, clearly hitting its cap. And so, just like before, Suho gave it rest. This time by quickly beheading it. It wasn't out of meanness, just need. Now with 2 new skills in hand, he was ready to battle more. He wanted to encounter more fiends, not for the rush of war, but to gain skills, gather growth points, and become tougher. Outside the portal, the mood among the waiting stalkers was stiff and annoyed. They had just learned that someone had gone into their assigned portal without consent. The second the news hit, slurs started flying everywhere. Most of them were livid and felt slighted, moaning about how someone had the gall to step into their patch. Some were already making schemes to teach this secret crasher a lesson once they emerged back out. They weren't going to let it slide that easily. Meanwhile, not far from the portal, a rescuer was in the middle of a grave talk. He was chatting with a few men in jackets, folks from the hunter group. They had come to check, and were specifically asking about a stalker named Suho. The rescuer didn't hold back, and told them everything he knew. From what he witnessed, Suho wasn't just some basic stalker. He had cleared a pack of corpses on his own, and even mended his gashes in the middle of the mess. One of the men, hearing the account, looked visibly shocked. He hadn't arrived late, yet somehow by the time he got there, the trolls were already totally wiped out. And to crown it, the person in charge was supposedly a medic. He tried to dismiss it at first, saying it wasn't feasible. In their world, medics didn't have the war power to do something like this by themselves. But still, if this fellow really managed to finish the portals alone, especially one packed with trolls, then they couldn't overlook him. If he achieved it, they would definitely have to hire him. Meanwhile, Suho was out on his own, busy stalking down hobgoblins and gathering growth points one after another. He shifted fast and well, beheading multiple hobgoblins at once with ease. His strikes were clean managed. He purposely left one hobgoblin, letting it exist. Just one stare from Suho was enough to make the fiend bolt faster than a track star. But that was exactly what Suho had intended from the start. He wanted the fiend to flee and bring back more of its sort. With a short gap in action, he chose to view his status. Thanks to the surge of hobgoblins he had just beaten, both his stats and skills had grown notably. While eyeing the stack of troll remains around him, another idea popped into his head. There was still something handy left in those frames. Inside the fiends, there were mystic pebbles. These specific ones were low-grade mystic pebbles. Nothing too unique, but each one could trade for around 50,000. That was more than enough cause for Suho to take the time to grab them. Under standard cases, he wouldn't bother with this sort of toil. He didn't have the luxury to slow down. But right now, his money state was closer to a pauper than a stalker, so he wasn't going to let these pebbles go to waste. He started pulling the pebbles from the fallen fiends one by one, carefully tucking them all in his bag. By the time he was finished gathering the booty, he felt truly content. This was a fair haul, but just as he was about to catch a breath, that piece was broken. A sudden surge of pure killing intent struck him like a wall. When he pivoted to meet it, about 30 hobgoblins were already nearing. Heading them was the same fiend he had let go earlier, the one that had run in horror. And now with the backup, the entire bunch lunged towards Suho all at once. But Suho didn't panic. Instead, he sprang into the breeze like a shadow, moving with the speed and precision of a schooled slayer. Within heartbeats, several hobgoblins had already dropped, their heads rolling across the dirt. His steps were sharp and fluid, like slicing through cream. Then, as if gifting his works, the mechanic told him that he had reached a new level. Fresh attribute points were provided to his profile, making him even more powerful than before. With that boost in hand and sufficient experience acquired, Suho concluded there was no reason to prolong things any further. It was moment to finish this. He plunged directly into the cluster of foes, hacking in every path, clearing the pack with cold precision. At one point a hobgoblin managed to rush him forward, intending to hit. But instead of terror, Suho's expression sparked with delight. He was not anxious. If anything, he appeared even more ecstatic than earlier. The leader creature in this portal was a chief hobgoblin, and it was a level 20 rival. As anticipated of a ruler, it came sprinting in first, attempting to strike a blow, but it failed poorly. Right after that, a bunch of smaller beasts tried to pull a hidden strike from the back. But Suho, without even rotating, completely responded at once and sliced them down like it was nothing. That is when the leader creature changed approaches and utilized one of its abilities, horror. The horror ability was foul. It frozen the target and forced them into a condition of absolute dread. The greater the ability level, the more potent its impact. And since this was a leader creature, that alone was enough of a reason for how it could employ such a mighty psychic-type ability even inside a minor-level portal. The true issue was Suho did not possess any equipment or abilities that could shield his consciousness or defy psychic strikes. The leader viewed this as an opportunity to end the struggle and rushed in to claim triumph. Without pausing, Suho held his edge firmer with his left hand and purposefully gashed himself. The acute ache jolted him out of the horror-induced stillness. The second his consciousness cleared, he blocked the leader's arriving hit. Then, instead of concentrating on the leader, right away Suho made a rapid choice. He shifted his focus to the smaller beasts first. Within moments, he drifted through the zone, cutting down every single one of them. In just a brief flash of movement, he destroyed all the hobgoblins inside the portal, leaving no foes behind except the leader itself. Before returning to confront the chief hobgoblin, he took a second to mend the injury on his left limb. Now, with the diversions gone and his frame back in condition, it was just him and the leader. One-on-one, no more intrusions. And from the sight on the creature's face, it did not appear all that certain anymore. The clash between the two had commenced, and they traded strike after strike. Suho gave it his best, swinging his blade with resolve. But because of his fairly minor level, none of his strikes seemed to inflict any grave harm to the creature. It was becoming evident that a direct method was not going to function. Grasping this, Suho opted to shift tactics. Instead of striking aimlessly, he plunged his blade straight into the creature's limb, aiming at a fragile point to slow it down. In reply, the creature triggered its horror ability, once more hoping to freeze Suho and obtain the advantage. But this time it did not function. Once a person beats horror, it loses its hold, and Suho had already met it once and mastered it. Now that he was no longer impacted, Suho targeted all his strikes on that identical spot. He cut the damaged limb over and over again, harshly using the flaw. After a few more exact and powerful strikes, the leader creature finally dropped to the dirt, barely breathing, clearly on the edge of demise. But Suho was not finished yet. Instead of going for the last strike, he suddenly utilized his mending glow, an ability meant to fix health, and he utilized it on the creature. The beast, already baffled and half deceased, was now totally thrown off. It could not grasp why the person who had nearly destroyed it was now trying to fix it. Suho, on the other hand, was pleased. He had just seen he could keep the struggle going. By constantly hitting and mending the creature, he could prolong the fight and use it as practice. Some span passed in this odd loop. Strike, wound, fix, repeat. And with every cycle, Suho became mightier. His abilities steadily grew, and eventually he promoted several of them to A and B grades. Meanwhile, the leader creature, once haughty and scary, was now bathed in sheer terror. It could not even bring itself to look at Suho anymore. Now that Suho had gained everything he could from this location, there was nothing left to win. The creature's part in this test was done. It had fulfilled its goal. With a steady look, Suho finished it all, decapitating the creature without pause. Just like that, the portal had been mastered. Suho stood triumphant. He was named the MVP of the portal, winning extra experience on top of everything else. His level had now gained 10, a vital marker for any slayer. Even his mending ability, Mending Glow, gained a promotion, moving to E grade. And along with that, he got a brand new ability, Remedy. It might not look like much now, but if his abilities kept growing at this rate, it would not be shocking if one day he could nullify even 10,000 kinds of toxins. It was only the start, but the way ahead was clearly bright. With everything finished, it was time to move on. Suho turned toward the door of the portal. Outside, the air was strained. The portal had begun to shake slightly, making people mutter and wonder. Had the portal been cleared? Then, before anyone could think further, Suho walked out. He stepped out softly and boldly, as if the mess behind him did not count. There was not a trace of fatigue or pain on his face, just still poise. People around him looked unable to figure out who he truly was or what exactly he had achieved, and Suho did not bother clarifying. He simply let their interest expand. Soon after, various groups hurried over. They had all come seeking the secret man, who had mastered the portal alone. But Suho bypassed every bid, every scout, every plea tossed his way. He was not curious. Instead, he walked past them and stopped right in front of a man in a sleek suit. With a steady and bold voice, Suho hailed him. This man was no common official. He was the group head of the South Korean Hunter Association Yongchulin, and judging by the puzzled look on his face, he clearly was not anticipating to be hailed by the person behind the portal's win. The setting moves to the South Korean Hunter Association, where Group Head Yong and Sujo were sitting opposite from each other. On the outside, it appeared like a typical enrollment talk, but Chulman's brain was elsewhere. His ideas kept sliding back to their prior meeting. He recalled how they had first met, grasping hands simply, and how Suho had stated that he was already on his way to the Hunter Association. Anyway, at first Chulman had thought it was just for a permit update, something skilled slayers did all the time. But as the talk moved forward, it became certain that Suho was actually there for first enrollment. That caught Chulman off guard. He was still trying to digest how someone like Suho, who was enrolled as a healer of all things, had managed to clear a whole portal all by himself. And the way Suho had behaved, still relaxed, eating on snacks like it was just another day. Chman had looked over his talent test scores again and again. Factually, Suho seemed more like a fighter than a healer. The digits did not fib. He had the bodily force and fight, yet not to mention the poise that you would expect from a frontline warrior. It did not make sense. While Coleman was lost in thought, Suho spoke up, pulling him out of it, by asking if there was a hitch. That brought Chman back to focus. He started asking Suho a few normal questions: origin, schooling, that kind of thing. And that is when more parts of the riddle began to fit in place. We learned that Suho was a school quitter. He had been learning physical training before leaving. Most pupils from that branch usually picked fight roles, like warrior or shooter, if they entered the Slayer field. But Suho had gone in a different path. He had picked the healer role, and the reason, he just disliked getting pained. Then he went on to clarify what had happened inside the portal. He narrated the chain of events in a blunt, almost cold way. Though he left out one major fact, the point that it had all been far too simple for him. He simply said he fought to stay alive, and that was that. But when Suho easily spoke of chief hobgoblins, Chulman braced. Something about that did not sit well with him. Portals that made chief hobgoblins were not meant to be simple. So Suho, seeing his worry calmly, opened his pouch. In the next breath, he dropped all the prizes he had gathered from the portal right onto the desk. The object struck with a dull bang, and Chulman was caught totally off guard. His eyes grew in fright, and for a tick he almost freaked. These were the magic gems Suho had gathered after slaying hobgoblins. The smaller ones were from basic hobgoblins, while the larger, more sleek one had come from the hobgoblin chief. Since Suho did not really know their true worth, he kindly asked the group head if he could help get them handled. Even while trying to stay still, Chulman could not take his eyes off the prizes. It was a fine pull. Finding his poise, he looked at Suho gravely and asked if he truly wished to become a slayer. When Suho agreed, that easy pact lit real joy in the group head's eyes. Trying to calm himself again, Chulman asked whether this choice was just made on whim, but Suho replied with a soft grin and said no, it was not hasty at all. While Chulman was still feeling the surge of joy from hearing Suho's reply, Suho moved the tone slightly and started clarifying his real motive. It was not about force or cash. It was private. He disliked beasts, and he disliked the portals they came from. As a boy, he had lost his whole family during a portal shock. After that, he grew up in an orphanage totally alone. At first, he thought that slaying beasts would help soothe that deep anger and ache inside him. But even after beating several beasts, that knot in his chest never melted. No matter how many he slew, the pain never vanished. That is when he made a choice. He could not fix the past, but he could pick the kind of future he wanted to guard. He did not want anyone else to feel the way he did. He wanted to fight not for payback, but for peace for folks. He wanted to be out there on the dirt doing real work. And that is why he opted to become a slayer, not for any group, but for the South Korean Hunter Association. Chman was truly moved by this reply. But as someone with skill, he also felt the need to clarify the flaws. He told Suho plainly that the wage scale of the Hunter Association was notably lower compared to what private groups usually pay. But Suho did not seem bothered by that at all. As long as he had free entry to many portals lead in entering them, and the power to find slayers who did wrongs, that was more than enough for him. Chman could barely trust what he was hearing. You see, even though the Hunter Association mainly has portal lead, they often end up selling those rights off to private groups. And the reason is easy. No official wants to put their life on the line for a tiny state pay. Most people say they join to assist others, but the truth is they seek firm, safe spots where they can gain quietly without ever having to walk into a portal. That is why so many seek for office parts instead of field work. But in Chulman's eyes, Suho felt different. He was not hunting safety or ease. He was a rare kind of true loyalist who wanted to be out on the front lines guarding folks. Someone who truly trusted in public help. The joy was so huge that for a tick Coleman felt dizzy, but he quickly pulled out of it and got back to the chore of managing the magic gems. Now to take the formal Slayer test, one has to first pass a talent test, with both a typed and a physical test. Sadly for Suho, this year's sign-up time had already finished and the test was set for tomorrow. But luckily for Suho, he had Brother Chulman on his side. Since Suho had managed to master a whole portal by himself, there was a good chance they could move some chords and get special consent from the top leaders. That part was not a hitch. What had worried Chman, though, was the type test finishing that with only 1 day of study, almost impossible for a normal person. But Suho, being Suho, was sure. To him, if you ever get the chance to do something, you grab it. No matter the state. The only point, our boy was nearly a pauper at this stage. He did not even have enough cash to pay the test sign-up fee. So, hiding his pride, he asked if Group Head Chulman could handle the magic gems for him. And Chulman, being the loyal guy he is, at once took the chore, without a second thought. Right now, the only person Suho could fully trust was his big brother Chulman, and he was truly thankful for that. After some span, they finished all the talent tests. Group Head Coleman then sent Suho the cash they got from selling the gems. In the next scene, Suho was eating through Coleman's food box like he owned the spot. Thanks to the magic gems, he got 3 million. And on top of that, since he signed as a civil servant slayer, he also got some tax break perks. Still, that was not enough for him. He had one more plea. He had heard the association had a book room, and he wanted to study a bit for the type test tomorrow. He kindly asked if the group head could give him entry. And of course Chulman said yes with a grin. He even personally showed Suho the way to the book room, and told him he would not need a staff card to walk in. Before leaving, Chulman wished him the best of luck for the test. Suho watched him go quietly, thinking how nice and firm his brother still was. Deep down, he knew that one day Chulman would surely become the leader of the association. And with Chulman out of the frame, Suho turned his focus back to the book room. His target was clear. Find something linked to his past life. He recalled big events happening, things that moved whole lands, but the facts were always dim. Human brains were not made to carry thoughts across lives, and he was no rule. Still, somewhere in this spot was the tool. A piece of data or an ability he wanted badly. After looking around a bit more, Suho finally hit on something odd. A book, huge, old-looking, and so wide it failed to fit on any rack. Keeney took it up. The second he opened it, the system beeped in with a strange note. The book was not from this world. It also stated that there was a special way to use it, something past just reading. And Suho, he already knew what that meant. Without pause, he held the book over his head, like some RPG player sparking a hidden task. For a brief split, he felt like a total fool. Nothing was occurring. His limbs were getting weary. Anger grew fast because he was very sure this was the only way to start it. Then, just before he could start blaming the book, the system spoke again. The book library of memories had taken a focus in his tail. That is when the magic started. The book glowed. Reality changed. And in the wink of an eye, Suho was no longer standing in that old room. He now stood before a huge cosmic tree. Its stems deep in bright stone, its limbs reaching into a sky that was not even real. A round stair looped around it, leading upward into the vast. And this is the Library of Memories. It's then shown that the Library of Memories gives its user the power to recall everything they have ever seen or heard, including sad or painful times. Normally, the human brain deals by forgetting, but once this power is got, the user is loaded with perfect memory. The first holder of this skill was the boss of the Hexagon Guild, a former Korean Hunter Association worker. While learning in a book room for a work shift, she accidentally got this power after using a book as a cushion just because laying face down was not comfy. Suho thinks about how lucky she was to find such a skill, and feels glad to her for showing him to it. He even plans to give her a dish one day. The system box then asks Suho to give his own tale to the library of memories. He thinks how strong the power truly is. It could help him fix every thought he has ever had, mainly since human views tend to dim and warp over time. Seeing its worth, he chooses that getting the skill is needed to keep every fact with care. A note shows up saying his tale has been taken. Suddenly, a loud gust spins around him, and the system says that the library of memories is now reading and noting his past. Suho starts drifting in air, circled by bright words. As a map appears above the book, another note follows saying that the library of memories has formally opened. It will keep everything he has seen and heard, giving him entry whenever needed, while also hinting at vital data. Suho looks at his hand, feeling that the noting task feels a bit off, likely because this whole area is some sort of dream. Now that he has the skill, he chooses to try it out. He shuts his eyes and goes back to a past fight. There he sees himself badly hurt. The flash comes back with sharp feelings, and he feels the rage grow in him, once more proving the memory's deep hue. He sees the ones who failed him, people he now knows as greedy fools, who had slowed closing the portal just to save themselves. He vows to never forgive or forget them. His mind drifts among many system boxes. The thought shakes him, and he wishes he had chosen to recall something less sad. Then out of nowhere, one system box shows a surprising alert. He's being offered a chance to become mightier. As the initial person to reach the realm of the transcendent, the system signals it's rebooting for player Ahn Suho. He's left speechless as the world around him reverts to normal. A thought crosses his brain. Could it be that the system really tossed him back in history? He recalls having once hit the state of unity with the Holy Sword and gaining the first SS rank ability. But now, as the first to reach transcendence, he's being given a fresh opportunity, something no one's ever felt before. Suho begins to realize that his return to the past might not be just a fluke. In the next breath, he reaches a certain place by cab. As he steps out, he reflects on how meaningful this second chance really is. Now he has an opportunity to prevent the ruins that once struck him and to handle the erratic portals that had caused many deaths. Fixed to tackle these portals faster than earlier, he tells himself that every pulse counts. He soon reaches a huge building hub. Standing before it, he's moved by its sheer size and notes that this is the biggest private hunter school in the country. He also sees it as a spot where he can make good money to secure his future. With firm intent, he heads inside. A bright clerk greets him and asks the cause for his visit. Suho responds that he wants to meet manager Kim Soo. The clerk, shocked, asks if he has a slot. Suho says no, but insists it's vital. He simply asks her to pass along a note. The lone victor of the Syndrome Station pre-catastrophe gate is here. The scene shifts to the director's room, where a calm woman names herself as Kim Soo, the director of Nexus Academy. Suho names himself as Ahn Suho. Director Kim asks him to sit and notes his achievement at the Syndrome Gate. She then asks why he came to Nexus. Suho clarifies that he's here to apply for a grant. The director is clearly shocked by the plea. Suho states it and mentions that he also plans to take the Hunter Permit test set for the next day. Still trying to wrap her head around the case, Director Kim asks how long it's been since he woke. Suho softly replies it happened today. Stunned even further, she checks her papers and says in doubt, a secret hunter who woke just today wants to take the test tomorrow and has already lone cleared a ruinous level portal. Suho states everything. He adds that a link within the hunter group helped him secure a spot in the exam. His aim is simple: to rank first. His bold claim leaves the director even more shocked. Then Suho states his term. If he ranks first, he wants to be formally given Nexus Grant student status with full cash aid. Suho knew full well that for a hidden newcomer, hitting the peak wouldn't be easy. But he wasn't some rookie. He was a war-toughened expert who had cleared many portals. Whether anyone else trusted him or not didn't count. That choice was up to them. Director Kim saw that clearing such a risky portal alone was no tiny deed. Still, she told him that the hunter test was a totally different case. With a mean pass rate of less than 20%, Suho made it clear if he didn't get first spot, they could ignore him and cancel the grant deal entirely. Keen Director Kim asked why he picked Nexus instead of more grand schools like Hexagon or Prime. Suho answered plainly. Despite being the biggest school, Nexus had hit a hard patch in recent years. It hadn't made a single top-ranking student, and that had pained its name and sign-ups. Silently, Director Kim noted the truth. Nexus was in dire need of victory, and no current student had shown any signs of becoming a star gift. If Suho really did take first spot, Nexus would gain the most from fame. His plan, in that sense, was perfectly timed. Still, the director couldn't help but wonder what kind of person makes such a brave bid with that much trust. Kinshi asked how much money he was seeking from the grant. Suho replied by asking about the prizes for becoming the peak student. She clarified that the gift included a full payback of fees and extra bonus of 30 million won, and the chance to at once join the Nexus Guild. Suho bowed. It seemed right for the country's largest school, but then with a smirk he added that 300 million won would be even better. The Digit Days director Kim, but Suho kept going, saying that noting the gains that came with being the peak student and the size of the school, the sum was fair. For Nexus, 300 million wasn't much anyway. Deep down, director Kim knew he wasn't wrong. Half-heartedly she agreed and told him that if he ranked first, she would pay him the 300 million. Later, Suho walked around the grounds. The staff folks showing him around laughed with pride, stating that Nexus was the largest school in all of South Korea. Suho saw the guide look spent and guessed they'd likely been woke up just to give him a walk. Feeling a bit bad, Suho thanked him for showing him around so late. The guide grinned, saying it was the least he could do for someone so vital. Then Suho saw someone working out alone on the field. Kini asked if that person was a student. The guide bowed, saying that student worked out every night at this hour and was the most busy student in the school. Suho was keen. The student's name was Dahan. The guy shouted to him, telling him to watch his health, to which Dan replied with a grin, saying he had to push himself more since he was already in his 3rd year. Suho knew him at once. In his past life, he had teamed up with Dawn for hunt tasks. Back then, Dawn had been the country's peak tank, famous for his top grit and guard powers. It had been sad when pure tanks lost their spot in the trend over time. But now, seeing Dian using an axe instead of a shield, Suho saw Dahan still hadn't opened his real power. This was a perfect chance. He could lead Dan now and finally sign him into the Great Hunter group. The guide named the two of them. After a short greeting, Suho asked if Dahan meant to use the war axe as his main tool. Dahan stated it. Suho then asked why he picked that specific tool. Dahan clarified that since he aimed to be a frontline fighter, his teachers had hinted the axe, saying it matched well with his frame. The guy joined in adding that few tools could match the war axe in pure ruinous force. Suho asked if Dahan had only worked with the axe. Dahan said he had. He called himself a slow student and said trying out many tools felt like a loss of time. It had taken him 2 years just to get somewhat good with the axe, and even now he didn't feel mainly skilled with it. Suho silently weighed the case and saw the real issue. It wasn't that Dahan lacked work, but that the axe simply didn't fit him. It wasn't a case of focus. It was a case of bad lead. If his growth hadn't bettered early on, he should have swapped tools. Suho found it odd that even the top school in the land missed something this clear. He hinted a different view. Since players would eventually get stat changes, it made more sense to pick a tool that felt natural to them. With skill fix results, ease could rise fast, but true act in war leaned on data and skill. In Dian's case, the war axe was clearly a bad fit. While it gave heavy hits, the long weights made users weak. And noting Don's large frame, it became even harder to guard him well. When Dian heard this, he was taken back. He had spent the last 3 years working with an axe. Zwa noted his work, but showed that Don's real force might be in tanking. He told Dan to try using a kite shield on his left limb and a one-handed blunt tool in his right hand. Based on Suho, this set would greatly better Dan's total war power. Dian stalled swapping roles. Right before the exam felt risky, mainly since the test was happening the very next day. Suho then asked him to think about what truly forms the core of a raid group. While many believed it was the mage, in truth, it was always the tank. The tank's task was to pull the foe's focus and guard the team. To do that well, a tank needed both a shield and a second tool for crowd control. Suho's logic finally clicked with Dan. Moved by the view, he chose to give it a go. Suho was glad that Dan did not let doubt stop him and liked how fast he could think and adapt. Suho wished him luck, and Dian thanked him before going off. Right after that, the guide clarified that manager Kim had asked him to give Suho a walk, which is why he named him as a guest. But now the guide was keen. Was Suho actually a teacher? He seemed to know a lot about war and deals. Suho said that he was a teacher, though inside he saw it likely looks odd for someone without a permit to know so much. He clarified that he was more like a partner. The guy bowed and noted he just got a ring. The deal was set, and it was time to return to the manager's room. Then came a day of the Slayer test. The spot in front of the group building was full with takers, all armed with blades and ready to win their Slayer permits. Everyone had been getting ready hard for this second, honing their skills and hitting peak act. Oddly, Suho, the same man who had cleared a portal all by himself, was in his worst state. After finishing the test, Suho walked out musing on the aim behind it. It had been made because of fears over possible doping, but in his view those steps did not mean much. Most fakes did not use drugs. They used skill buffs. During the test, one woman in mainly and several others had shown magic levels no one at level 5 should naturally have. The system then told Suho that his magic field power was far more acute than most. He had fully learned the skill of magic find. Thanks to that, Suho found it easier to see oddities. Although nothing had been formally told, he could already tell that many were faking using buffs. He knew it was time to put an end to this. Looking at Chman, Suho felt glad to have at least one fair person around. As he walked in the room where other takers were talking of their tests, he could not help but feel like he had accidentally become a fake himself. Chman walked up and asked how the test went. Suho said that he was sure he would pass, but then asked why Chulman was there. Chulman clarified that he was aiding out since the group was always short on staff. He had also heard that this type test was the hardest one yet, but Suho's trust was moving. Suho said that he believed he had solved it, and asked if he could bring something up. Chulman agreed as long as it was not about the test itself. He showed that during the test, there had not been any checks for buffs, and asked why. Chman asked what he meant by buff checks. Suho clarified that while the group did do urine and blood tests to stop drug use, and took private items to stop faking through gear, they did not seem a check for skill-based faking. He hinted that using magic find could help spot buff people more well. Chman liked the tip and vowed to look into it before the physical exam. Suho said he would get ready for the next test. Before he left, Chulman stopped him and said he personally hoped Suho would do well and that they would get to work together. He wished him luck on the physical, and Suho thanked him. 30 minutes later, at the spot of the physical test, the speaker told everyone that the exam had been put off by 2 hours due to issues with the dive pods. All takers were told to grab lunch at the food hall and wait either in the lounge or the workout area. But Suho was not sure. It felt like a plea. He guessed that Brother Chulman had already started hitting down on those trying to fake using buffs, moving fast just as he had hoped with 1,200 takers, and a pass rate of under 10%. Spotting fakes could easily bring that rate down to 7%. Anyone who passed under those terms would surely be top-grade gift. Suho chose to watch the other takers to spot anyone who might be worth keeping an eye on. Just then voices caught his focus. One man was daring another to a bout. The second guy snapped back, telling him to move off and stop picking fights. But the first guy clarified that he only wanted to spar, joking that the other was afraid his lack of skill would be shown. Vexed, the second man pushed him and told him to stay out of his face. The first man then raised a wood blade and asked what would happen if he hit first. Before anything could grow, Suho stepped in and blocked the wood blade with his own, making the foe pull back. The second man was dazed and asked Suho if he had lost his mind, but Suho softly said he would handle it and told the man to stay out of it. The guy asked who Suho was. Was he some sort of cop? Suho simply said he was just another test taker, but warned that dealing with someone like this foe would only cause needless fuss, so it was best to leave it to him. The foe then asked why Suho was getting involved. Suho grinned, named himself, and offered to be the foe's sparring partner, since he was so keen for one. But the foe was not moved. He mocked, saying he would not waste his time sparring with someone weak like Suho. That word weak caught Suho off guard. The foe claimed Suho just got lucky earlier and warned him not to get proud, telling him to leave. But Suho turned the tables, asking if he was scared. The foe, vexed, asked what that was meant to mean. Suho hinted they find out if it really was just luck, saying that the foe was too scared to test it. Goaded, the man took the dare, hurling slurs and calling Suho just another coward in the crowd. Suho agreed to the spar, but said they should get a lead and use the set sparring field. With leave given, both of them stepped into the workout field, pulling focus from nearby pupils. The judge told them they could only use practice tools given by the group, and warned that the bout would be stopped if things got out of hand. As the bout started, the foe rushed first, swinging his wood blade. Suho blocked it with ease. The foe jumped into the air, swinging down, but Suho moved away easily. Mad and shocked, the foe vowed to tear Suho apart, but Suho stepped down on the man's wood blade and teased him, calling him sadly weak. The slur pushed the foe over the edge. This man Park Yong was known as a mad blade user fixed on force, always seeking out skilled foes to fight. His thirst for power had turned him into a tireless fighter. Suho recalled how skilled Yong had been during their last meeting, and was shocked to see him among the same group of test-takers. He at once saw that Yong needed to be stopped before repeating past errors. Without warning, Suho gave a strong kick that sent Yong flying. As he hit the dirt, Suho mocked his prior pride. Dazed, Yong asked how Suho was so strong. Suho softly warned him that rushing in blindly would not work, saying that Yong had never met someone as strong as a level 10 before. Most of his prior foes likely never got past level 5. Getting back up with a smirk, Yong said Suho seemed too steady and said he would go all out. Suho hailed it. Yong let out a rain of hits, but Suho moved away easily with just one hand on his blade. The force of Yong's hits had surely grown, and Suho noted the added weight behind him. Then Yong went all in, using his signature dragon sword technique. A flash of blinding light erupted as the swords clashed. Yong thought he had finally landed a decisive hit and began to celebrate. But when the light faded, Suho was still standing completely unharmed. He had blocked the attack. Shocked, Yong trembled and demanded an explanation. Suho smirked and said the attack was too slow. In reality, Yong had only managed a basic version of the dragon sword technique. Without a hunter's license, it was impossible to master the real thing. Enraged by the humiliation, Yong charged again, but Suho dodged every attack with ease. At one point, Suho dropped into a crouch, baiting Yong into one last reckless charge. Just as Yong shouted that the match was over, Suho landed a powerful upward strike to his chin, knocking him out cold. Yong hit the ground defeated and dazed. Struggling to understand what had happened, Suho calmly repeated that his attacks were simply too slow. Though Yong was seething, all he could do was lie there muttering Suho's name under his breath. Watching this, Suho realized that Yong's obsession would now revolve entirely around defeating him. With that distraction taken care of, Suho figured the testing center might finally quiet down. Meanwhile, the supervisors, who had been observing everything, were left stunned. Suho casually spoke up, reporting that he had accidentally knocked out Park Yong, and asked them to take care of him. In the next scene, Suho sat inside a room filled with various machines. Looking around, he noticed there were more skilled individuals present than before. As the room grew noisy, Suho became visibly irritated, clearly wishing they would all just leave. A technician walked up to him and instructed him to lie down. He then explained how the emergency button worked in case anything fell off during the dive process. Suho confirmed he understood. Once the system powered up, Suho lay down, and cables were attached to both sides of his head. A system window appeared indicating that the Hunter Practical Test program had been activated as Suho's consciousness connected to the simulation. The dive progress steadily climbed until it hit 100. The connection was successful, and the healer class test scenario began. When Suho opened his eyes, he found himself in a different world. Right away, he could tell this test was not going to be easy, especially considering how few people passed the healer exam. In front of him were wounded individuals calling for help, and some were trapped under rubble. One girl in particular was desperately trying to lift a huge stone. As Suho took in the chaotic scene, he silently criticized the Hunter Association for being too ruthless with the scenario. The whole situation already felt traumatic. Before continuing, let's understand the context of the practical test. It is considered the centerpiece of the Hunter exam. The main goal is to evaluate how well a participant fits into their chosen class. Every year, the simulation scenarios change, and the criteria for passing also vary. Typically, these tests involve one-on-one fights or surviving waves of enemies. A participant's score depends on how long they last and how many opponents they defeat. But for healers, it is different. The focus isn't just on how strong their healing powers are. While healing ability matters, the most valued quality is sacrifice. Healers who put their own lives on the line to save others earn higher scores. As monsters began to approach, Suho reflected on the nature of the test. In this scenario, the healer is expected to die protecting the patient. The issue was that his own stats were still active. Walking toward the monsters, he spotted a sword on the ground. Looking at it, he realized he would have to take a serious beating before dying. Unlike the others, he questioned the logic of letting himself be beaten to death. Dying once had already been enough for him. Nearby, others screamed for help at the sight of the monsters. But Suho knew those screams were illusions. In reality, he was surrounded only by corpses. He approached a terrified girl and asked if she was okay. Shaking, the girl warned that the monsters would return, and they had to run. But Suho knew the real mission. He had to protect her until the end. Reassuring her, he promised that the rescue team would come, and that he would keep her safe until then. With resolve, he stood his ground, ready to fight the oncoming monsters. Back in the observation room, players started exiting the simulation pods, one by one. One of them stepped out, thinking he could have done better. A woman thanked him for his efforts and instructed him to gather his belongings and head outside. She then moved to another pod and checked the screen. It displayed the details of a participant Kong Genie Young Archer class, with a recorded time of 9 minutes and 4 seconds. She commented that this season's scores were particularly low, due to the test difficulty. Curious, she asked director Shin how long Suho had been inside. Shin replied 30 minutes. Shocked, she repeated the number, unable to believe it was that long. Rushing over to Suho's machine, she checked the display herself. 30 minutes. Still in disbelief, she asked if Suho was a warrior. Shin corrected her, saying Suho was a healer. Refusing to believe it, she accused him of lying, but Shin pointed to the sword Suho had been holding and urged her to look closely. Together, they reviewed the simulation footage. Watching Suho in action, the woman asked again if he was really a healer. Impressed by his combat ability, she wondered aloud if he might be disqualified for not dying. But director Shin clarified there was no rule requiring death. The test's real purpose was to protect the patient until the end. She nodded in agreement. Shin explained further. Suho was meeting all the conditions. He never abandoned the patient, fought near her, and continued healing her throughout. He was risking his life to protect her. As long as all conditions were met, disqualification wasn't an option. Hearing that, the woman concluded that the top score for this exam had already been determined. Meanwhile, Suho was still battling inside the simulation. With incredible skill, he sliced through the monsters in a single blow. But even after his victory, Suho felt it wasn't enough. He needed to be faster. As more monsters appeared, he eliminated them one after another, showing unwavering focus. Eventually, he wiped them all out. A system message popped up. Your understanding of the skill footplay is very high. Congratulations, you have mastered footplay. Suho read the message and realized that although this was a simulation, since it was based on real-world mechanics, the system could still recognize his physical control. The system acknowledged that he was directly controlling his body, making it possible to master physical skills even here. Though the experience gained was less than in real combat, it was still a great way to train. In addition to swordsmanship, he had picked up various skills and upgraded all basic sword techniques to a rank. There were no experience points or item rewards, but the results were still satisfying. If he could eventually raise all his sword skills to a rank or higher, he might be able to develop a technique, like Park Yong's dragon sword technique. Another message appeared. Great achievement. Your understanding of swordsmanship surpasses everyone else's. The system is impressed by your unique style and wishes to register it. Would you like to create a new swordsmanship skill by combining your basic sword techniques and footplay? Suho smiled, finally ready to create his own style guardian sword. A confirmation window appeared asking if that would be the official name. Suho confirmed. Another message congratulated him for his supreme mastery and recognized the creation of a new unique swordsmanship skill, Guardian Sword S. This new ability boosted the effects of all his sword and footwork skills by 50%. As a reward for this achievement, the system awarded him 10 bonus stat points and expressed its hope that Suho would continue walking the path of the sword. A final message confirmed he had unlocked Sword Mastery S, a privilege granted only to those with a deep understanding of swordsmanship. This lifted all restrictions on learning and using sword techniques, enhanced all sword-related abilities by another 50%, and removed any limitations tied to sword use. Suho quietly thought back to his past life. Back then, it had taken him over 10 years to reach this level of skill. But now, thanks to the knowledge he carried from that life, he had progressed much faster. He recognized how much his value had grown. Turning his focus to the exam, he recalled that the number of monsters was predetermined, and he couldn't help but wonder how much effort had gone into preparing the whole thing. With all his objectives completed, only 2 paths remained. Either die at the hands of the monsters, or wipe them all out. Elsewhere, the supervisors, watching the live footage, were left speechless. They couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. For the first time in the history of practical exams, someone had defeated every single monster. They were in awe not just of his combat prowess, but also because he had successfully healed the patient. One examiner even joked that they didn't need to bother checking the rankings. The winner was clear. A few days later, the scene shifted to the Hexagon Guild's headquarters. A confident guild member declared that their student Ken would surely be this year's top scorer. Another member agreed, proud of the effort they had poured into his training. But then someone noticed a congratulatory letter as it was read aloud. Confusion spread. Ken wasn't the top scorer after all. The name on the letter was Ahn Suho. Everyone was stunned. The atmosphere immediately shifted tense and confused as someone asked where Ken was. At that moment the guild master received a call, and the scene changed again. Suho was now on a call with the team leader. The leader apologized for the late congratulations, explaining he had been swamped with work, but he made sure to praise Suho for earning the highest score. He admitted he hadn't expected such consistency from him. Suho responded humbly, saying it was all thanks to the team leader, though the leader quickly deflected the credit, saying Suho's achievements were entirely his own doing. He also pointed out that Suho's exceptional performance had helped expose a number of cheaters who were illegally boosting their skills. This would lead to tighter rules in future exams, which he saw as a positive outcome. Then the team leader cautiously brought up a question. Was Suho still interested in joining the Great Hunter Association? Suho replied that although he might stay with the guild a bit longer, his ultimate goal hadn't changed. He still intended to join the association. The team leader appreciated his clear answer and said he would reach out once the recruitment or testing schedule was ready. Suho agreed with a smile. Before ending the call, the leader reminded Suho to eat properly and look after his health, and Suho returned the same kind words. After the call ended, the team leader glanced down at something in his hand and quietly reminded himself to eat too. Back on Suho's side, he paused for a moment, something about the leader's tone lingering in his mind. He wondered if everything was all right. Just then his phone rang again. Suho checked the caller ID and seemed to know who it was. He answered and introduced himself. The caller was Kim Soo, who congratulated him on his success and confirmed that payment had already been sent according to their agreement. Suho acknowledged her efficiency, praising how professional her large guild was. Then came her proposal. She invited Suho to join the Nexus Guild, promising benefits better than anything other guilds could offer. Curious, Suho asked how far they were willing to go. Kim Soo assured him that she would do everything possible to match his expectations. As a top student and scholarship recipient, she said adjusting the contract terms would be no problem. She even suggested meeting in person to finalize the deal. Suho, however, politely declined for now, mentioning he had personal plans that day. He promised to review his schedule and get back soon. Still, he did hint that considering he was a Nexus scholarship recipient, it would be logical to join Nexus over any other guild. Kim Soo was overjoyed by his response. Her excitement was so intense that even her co-workers nearby noticed. She begged him not to sign anything with another guild in the meantime. Amused by her enthusiasm, Suho chuckled and agreed to meet soon. As the call ended, Suho smiled, still hearing the echo of her thrilled voice. At that moment, the taxi driver let him know they had arrived. Suho thanked him and stepped out. Now standing outside, Suho reflected on everything that had happened. He had cleared the test, secured his license, and received the payment. The next chapter of his journey was right in front of him. With quiet determination, he moved forward, ready to begin farming. At Lighthouse General Market, Suho checked his phone and thought about how he had quickly gathered everything he needed. Now the only thing left was to buy a weapon. With that goal, he arrived at a small tucked-away shop, deliberately avoiding the crowded ones, since he wasn't sure they would have what he was looking for. As he stood outside, he wondered if his quiet place might hold the right weapon. Stepping inside, Suho greeted the shopkeeper, who asked what he needed. Suho explained that he had just become a hunter and was looking for a lightweight weapon. The shopkeeper directed him toward a section with cheaper items. When Suho glanced at them, he noticed thick layers of dust and realized most low-grade weapons came without verified data. But that didn't mean every unverified weapon was useless. Some weapons needed to go through a process called liberation before revealing their potential. These special weapons usually gave off a subtle aura, a kind of signal, though most players in places like this wouldn't recognize it. Suho picked up one of the weapons and activated his magic detection skill. A faint smile appeared on his face. He had found it. After walking out with the weapon, Suho thought to himself that if the owner ever found out the spear's true worth, he would regret letting it go so cheaply. But for now it was time to begin. Suho closed his eyes, focused, and began pouring his magical energy into the weapon. The spear absorbed his power at a fast pace, draining his energy quickly. Realizing how much it was taking out of him, Suho stopped and collapsed to the ground, completely exhausted. He understood that if he had pushed just a bit more, he might have passed out from magic depletion. To awaken the weapon, he needed a magic stat of at least 100. Though he couldn't use it yet, he knew it would become a powerful asset in the future. He promised himself he would level up fast and unlock its full potential soon. Meanwhile, inside the PBS building, reporter Jeannie received a phone call from Suho. Suho introduced himself and confirmed that he was the top scorer in the recent Hunter test. He also revealed that he had personally handled the unprecedented gate incident at Syndrome Station all by himself. Jinwoo was shocked by the revelation, taking a moment to process the fact that Suho had cleared such a dangerous gate even before officially becoming a licensed hunter. In Jinwoo's eyes, Suho was already a monster. When Jinwoo asked why Suho had reached out to him directly, Suho explained that he had found Jinwoo's blog during a search. He mentioned that while he knew about Jinwoo's privileged upbringing, he respected Jinwoo's decision to pursue journalism out of interest. Suho shared that he had big plans and would soon become a source of major headlines. He then proposed that Jin work as his exclusive reporter. Jinwoo was skeptical, wondering if Suho was trying to tie down a wealthy journalist. Internally, he dismissed Suho as another ambitious oddball with delusions. Even though he understood what Suho was suggesting, Jinwoo was uncomfortable. He admitted he craved exclusives, but he had no desire to work under anyone. Suho clarified that he wasn't looking for a subordinate, but a reliable partner. Jinwoo responded bluntly, suggesting that Suho's offer seemed like a tactic to boost his own market value before joining a guild. Suho admitted there was some truth to that, but not entirely. He wasn't doing this to increase his worth, but to gain fame. His ultimate goal was to become a civil servant. Jinwoo was caught off guard. Did Suho mean joining the Hunter Association? The idea of chasing fame to become a public official seemed absurd to him. But Suho was serious. He wanted to work in the field as part of the Hunter Association. That made Jinwoo question his background. Was Suho another rich kid treating hunter work as a side quest? Suho revealed he was actually a gate orphan, and that past was what drove him toward public service. It shaped his purpose in life, to conquer gates. As Jinwoo glanced at his laptop, he questioned whether Suho was really being serious. With so many strange people emerging lately, it was getting hard to tell. But in the end, he decided it didn't matter much. He acknowledged Suho's point of view, but declined the offer. He preferred choosing his own stories to cover. Still, Suho didn't give up. He suggested a bet. Curious, Jinwoo asked what kind. Suho proposed to earn Jinwoo's trust by proving himself as a hunter. He announced he would attempt to clear the Tower of Challenge alone. That very day, Jinwoo was stunned. That tower was infamous. Clearing it was considered impossible even for a full party. Doing it solo sounded downright insane. But Suho was confident that if he pulled it off, it would be enough to convince Jinwoo. If he succeeded, he wanted Jinwoo to become his personal and exclusive reporter. Suho remembered the Jinwoo from his past life, a top-tier broadcaster from PBS. Famous for his pride and elite background, he had gained popularity as a journalist who never took requests. Yet in Suho's previous life, they had teamed up many times thanks to Jinwoo's sharp reporting and rare influence over public opinion. But that same brilliance made him dangerous, like a thorn in someone's side.
And that's a wrap for today's recap, but trust me, there's so much more to come. The next chapters are packed with even more twists, and I can't wait to dive into them with you. Comment below if you want part 2. Your thoughts mean everything, and we'll make it happen together. If you're enjoying the journey, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay updated. We're pouring our heart into every video, improving day by day to give you the best experience. Your support really helps, and a like makes sure this video reaches more people. Let's grow this community together. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.